There's this ancient call to gather by a fire, to look deep into its mystery, to look for the questions in its many answers, like a telescope pointed into the far reaches of the universe. So we find ourselves here by the fire in Whiskeyland, thinking about time travel and how one distiller and one whiskey could predict the future and stay relevant for over 150 years. And like his grandfather before him, this man knows the secret.
Growing up in Lynchburg, I sort of liken it to Mayberry. People think when they see the ads of Jack Daniels, especially the older ones, that it was just filmed in a movie set or something, but it's not. It's just, pictures of mostly distillery employees around Lynchburg. So, the town itself is about 600 people. The county, even today, the whole county is only maybe 6,000 people. So we're in the second smallest county in the state of Tennessee. It's a small town, and there's one stoplight. And I even turn that off at night, I think about 7 or 8 o'clock. They just turn it to flashing yellow. We don't even need it. It's a interesting way to grow up, I guess. You don't really think about it as a kid. You certainly don't think about Jack Daniels being here and being in this really small area, but it's just something that the families of Lynchburg have done for over 150 years is make whiskey, and we send a little piece of that all over the world.
As Master Distiller, Chris Fletcher has deep family ties to Jack Daniels.
Frank Frog Bobo is my mom's dad. He started working here in 1957 and retired in 1989.
And like his grandfather before him, he is the captain of a ship that honestly feels like it set course in ancient times. And everyone at that wheel has one very certain obligation: to make Jack Daniels whiskey. Now, Jack Daniel, as mythological as he is historical, was an enigmatic character. At 5 foot and 2 inches, he was a forever bachelor who died sort of young, as did many distillers, living with 1 foot in the past and the other kicking some sort of heavy object. He began his life mostly motherless, with a contentious relationship with his father, and he left home young, to a preacher's house. A preacher that made whiskey, Daniel Call, and his distiller, an enslaved man who went by the name Nathan Nearest Green. And as if his legacy has already revealed itself like a stone, reminds us that another time came before. His destiny thoroughly distilled in the juice that would become his forever calling card, his namesake. What does it mean to live on? What significance can it have? I, of course, think a lot about Nearest Green as well, and his many ancestors that still work at Jack Daniels Distillery to this day. A mentor, a father figure, a friend who helped to craft a spirit that many call the nectar of the gods. In many ways, he also speaks through Jack and through the whiskey. His mythology, one of an immense ability to transform a simple grain into a complex poem.
There's certainly a very rooted, authentic place of whiskey making here. That's undisputed. I think our process is the most traditional in the industry. It's very important to me to be able to say we make whiskey the way my grandfather did. It's the most important thing to me. That is not going to change as long as I'm here. The pride that goes into it for everybody, it goes without saying, right? You're literally taking, corn, water, and wood, it's not an easy thing. With us, it's really super traditional old school whiskey making. We are a large distiller, but we're still growing our own yeast strain in our lab with our own microbiologist from that same culture that my grandfather was using back in his day. We bring it fresh into the distillery every week. Our microbiologist brings it in with her own hands and inoculates it into our mashing system. People are very surprised to hear that. A lot of people are using yeast that's commercially available, or they'll sign a contract with a company that provides yeast for bakers and brewers or whatever, which is just, to me as a distiller, the very thing that makes your product and is, arguably the number 2 source of flavor in the product. Why in the world would you ever consider not doing that in-house? And so, again, the investment that we make into the process of making whiskey and with our people is the most important thing. So all of our stills are 100% copper. It's a double distillation with a column and a pot, but all copper stills. The charcoal mellowing process, which is, really, really old way of kind of, slowly filtering the new make whiskey through this hard maple charcoal. It's not adding anything, it's actually removing. It's kind of a filtration. If you think about the earliest forms of American whiskey, what you distilled right off the still was your product. And there was no aging, right, to get the color and the flavor from a barrel. A barrel was just a way to get it to a saloon somewhere, right, for somebody to drink. There's probably a little bit of variation in the whiskey that they made. I don't think that's too far of a stretch to think. And so this process is a really costly, really old-fashioned way of doing it. To me, if the quality of Jack Daniel's changes, then it's game over. And so, and we will know. It's amazing. Even somebody that loves our whiskey, maybe mixing a Coke, they don't. No offense, they don't want Pepsi and bourbon. They want Jack Daniel's and Coca-Cola.
I'm always intrigued by the idea of whiskey makers as time travelers, moving between a healthy reverence of the past with a dose of Nostradamus, predicting an untold future, a deep inward look at whatever breadcrumbs the collective whiskey unconscious is dropping along the path. As distillers forge this future that's yet unwritten, but certainly imagined. So here we are, trying to dig into its many layers, to understand how does a 150-year-old whiskey brand maintain its cool and stay relevant through boom and bust and boom. Almost everyone has a memory that is centered around sipping Jack. Think about it. Where were you when you first tried it? Who was with you? I'm guessing it's vivid enough to paint. We had the good fortune to partner with Original Grain to help tell this story. And because their collaboration with Jack Daniel's is vital, they sent their marketing guy, a true whiskey connoisseur, Nate.
Tell me what we got going on with this watch.
We got in this watch everything that makes Jack Jack. So it's the most prominent element is the charred oak wood in there. That it's authentic Jack Daniel's barrels that were used to age our whiskey. We've got limestone inlays representing the cave spring where they get all the water from. And then the dial is made of a charcoal sealed in resin because every drop of Jack is filtered through charcoal.
Wow.
Original Grain's partnership with Jack Daniel's literally pulls from their barrels to tell a story about humans and time. It's a poetry of parts that reflects deeply on why craft and creativity can elevate and transcend a category when a company chooses relevance over revenue.
For us in our industry, there's, kind of this massive gap between the luxury, legacy brands that have been around for 100 years already.
Yeah.
And all these new brands that have popped up in the last decade or so that are just selling the cheapest things they can to maximize profit. So we think of ourselves somewhere in the middle where we're not guys in suits in a high rise somewhere figuring out like, oh, look at this spreadsheet. Here's what's going to sell the best. Like, we're just guys that drink whiskey and want to make stuff that we're just genuinely proud to wear.
Yeah, and Jack is like synonymous with cool.
It's also delicious.
It's really good, right?
Yeah, I'm taking a second to be like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, cheers, man. Cheers. Thanks for busting out the nice one for us.
And Nate, being the gentleman that he is, brought Chris Fletcher a gift. His very own watch.
Oh yeah, okay, cool, man.
We wanted to get you one from the first batch, and then we sold out. So it's been on back order for a couple of months, but got this from the second batch for you. Your very own
that's awesome.
Jack Daniel's watch.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
So thanks so much for letting us be a part of what you guys are building here. And
Cool.
yeah, that's cool for you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
Yes, sir.
that. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's get rid of this whole thing. All right. Yeah, thanks. Cool. Can I put it on?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah.
Perfect. Ready to go?
How about that, huh?
Let's go.
Cool.
Awesome.
Love it, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. We're a company of whiskey makers, people that create. And so I think, this obviously, the creation of something from a lot of the same materials, the oak, the limestone, the charcoal, all these things, to be able to take that and create, the sum of the parts, greater than what it was. I think whiskey is in a lot of ways the ultimate expression of that. I'm a little biased, I know. But how awesome is it to see it come to life there on your wrist? That's pretty cool right there. So
The reoccurring theme during our visit at Jack Daniel's was simple. This is the people's whiskey, specifically the people of Lynchburg, Tennessee, who for generations, family member after family member, have worked diligently at Jack to consistently make the whiskey we've all come to expect. The whiskey, well, I think that we deserve. And for that, well, I'm a grateful connoisseur. I think that Chris Fletcher has honored both Jack and his grandfather with a sturdy vision. One he didn't need to create to remain a fiercely authentic steward of.
yeah, everybody thinks my grandfather gave me my first taste of whiskey. He did not. It was my grandmother that rubbed some whiskey on my gum. So I'll give my grandma all the credit on that.
And like a medium, Jack can look into a crystal ball and see its higher calling. And thankfully, at every turn, it seems to answer. What is cool? It's something that has something to say. To have a voice so consistent after all this time, well, that means something. And that's why we're here, to bear witness to how a well-oiled machine can be powered by a humble town of beautiful people.
If you think about a company that kind of prides itself on being families of whiskey makers that generationally pass this down, obviously sustainability has to be right at the forefront because it's such a big part of it. We've thickened up the fermentation profile, which puts more grain per gallon of water used, and it makes everything so much more efficient because a lot of that water is going to get either cooked off and sold as a dried grain for animal feed, and then a lot of our waste will also go out as liquid animal feed here as well.
The world of whiskey has experienced wild changes since Jack and Nathan Nearest Green were firing up copper pots and tasting that white lightning right off the still. Innovation is a large part of what makes this world grow. But when you sit and take the time to taste Jack Daniel's, you become a time traveler, traversing through history, experiencing a living legend from a bygone era. Yes, things have changed, but the good stuff, the ritual, and the rites of passage stays the same. Before we left Lynchburg, we decided to pay our respects to Jack, as he rests in a small graveyard a stone's throw from town. And I started to once again ask myself, what does it mean to live on, to have a legacy? Uncle Nearest left this world a free man, and Jack even employed some of his children. Yes, the world was different then. A legacy is sometimes just a myth, but sometimes the right thing, the hard thing, is just simply the truth. Jack's legacy is so much more than the juice packaged with that iconic black and white label. But what a beautiful medium to tell his story. Back in Michigan, at our parents' house, it's our dad's birthday. I thought a lot about what it means to pass something down, to share a little bit of our own history. As a kid, one of the very first things my dad ever gave me was a homemade clock he built. I was stunned by his genius. It was made, at least in part, of Legos. He's an engineer after all. So to start our dad's celebration, we decided to do one of his very favorite things: go hunting for whiskey. We were on the hunt for something special. Admittedly, our dad wasn't much of a drinker when we were kids, except around the holidays or on his birthday, when he'd pour himself a Jack and Coke. So we had an idea for a beautiful gift: to physically encapsulate both the love and material sensibility of Jack with an ethos of timeless ingenuity. Luckily for us, of course, original grain was the perfect fit.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Where's Dad? Where's Dad?
He's outside.
That's where my shoes are. That's where my shoes are. You haven't seen it? It's a original grain Jack Daniels collaboration. Oh. Okay. Happy birthday.
Oh boy. Original grain.
It slides out.
Holy smokes.
Slides.
That's a heavy box. Jack Daniels. Whoa.
Pretty awesome, huh?
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
You can keep
the Absolutely.
number 7 grand going too.
Oh, these are extra links.
I don't think it's any surprise that the real gift here is time. The time spent together. We realized this was the first time in years that the original gang, my parents and their 3 children, were all together. Just us, like the old days, when Dad sipped Jack and Mom made hot dogs and we played in our backyard. And if that's not worth a cheers, well, I don't know what is. So cheers. When the ancient fire calls to you, it's good to answer. Happy birthday, Dad. We love you.
Happy birthday, Craig. I hope you have a nice pour of some fine Tennessee whiskey. Cheers.